Brad Pitt says don't touch anything, then proceeds to touch things.
Naughty Brad Pitt.
A lot of people who commit crimes tend to have very messy or cluttered houses, walking into a crime scene without any PPE, and they just cringe inwardly because it's just horrible to watch.
I fully appreciate and now respect the time, the effort and the complexity of forensics. Welcome to the Crime Scenes of Tinseltown. My name is Brett Harman, and we have recreated some of cinema's most iconic crime scenes of all time. We will be chatting with experts from the University of Lincoln. Let's dive in. So today I'm joined by Heather Grant, a lecturer in forensic science at the University of Lincoln and former forensic reporting scientist, which I find absolutely fascinating and can't wait to chat more about that. So together we'll be exploring a lot of things, but in particular the movie Seven, what it gets right, what it gets wrong, and also some more about forensic investigations. Heather, lovely to meet you. Welcome today.
Thank you very much for having me.
No worries at all. What do you think about the crime scene we've created today, with all the 18 pieces of evidence linking to different TV shows and movie scenes?
It's very interesting because obviously you're drawn to all of the different props and all of the different films and TV shows that they've created, which is great. But it's similar to crime scenes that I've seen before, where they're not as messy as they sometimes can be, or not as cluttered. A lot of people who commit crimes tend to have very messy or cluttered houses.
In terms of your experience before being a lecturer, what sort of crime scenes or things were you subjected to?
So it was a big range, so all the way from volume crime, which is things like burglaries, all the way to major crimes, so things like murders, sexual assaults. And I saw a good mix of them all. So things involving DNA purely from touch, so just handling something, which would be in a burglary, for example, all the way to murders where there's been blood patterns or blood-stained items, and then all the way to sexual offences, where you've got other body fluids that you've got to consider.
Do you think crime shows and films make forensic science look easy?
They make it look a lot quicker. So timescales for forensics can be up to 14 weeks for a result, and that's sort of like first results, so like very minimal interpretation, all of that kind of thing. Obviously for cases where there's an urgent nature, then they can sort of expedite things slightly faster, but also people's perceptions of how much forensic evidence can actually say. So people refer to the DNA being the golden bullet. But what people don't appreciate is that a lot of the issues now with DNA evidence is not necessarily whose DNA it is, but how the DNA has got there. Because there is something known as indirect transfer of DNA, where DNA could end up on an item or an area or a surface without that person's knowledge. So say for example, if I was to shake hands with somebody and then they go off and touch something, I haven't touched that item, but because my DNA was on their hands and they've now touched it, that's a way for DNA to transfer. So a lot of people think, you find DNA at a crime scene or on an item, and that means that's the person, that's the one who's done it. Whereas there are so many nuanced reasons why that DNA might be there.
When you watch these shows, do you sometimes recoil and think, no, that's not how it's done? And does that put you off watching these shows as well?
Yeah, it's a shame because I used to really enjoy watching these crime shows. And it's now something I can't watch because I do sort of cringe a lot, especially when they have those computer screens where they pressed a button and then it just says DNA match or something like that, and I'm just like, no. And it comes up with information about there's a picture of them, there's their name, all of that kind of stuff. We don't get most of that information, and it definitely doesn't look as dramatic. There are crime scene officers that if they ever watch a TV show, they see somebody walking into a crime scene without any PPE and they just cringe inwardly because it's just horrible to watch.
So we're going to move on to the focus of this episode, and that is Seven, the movie Seven. What a film. Is it true to life? Was it done well? Did they do their research and so on? So we'll go through it bit by bit. So looking at the scene as a whole, what do you think Seven does right in that scene about forensic investigation?
So obviously if they were concerned about there being a threat, then obviously they would send armed police or their SWAT team in this case. That would happen, and they would usually say that, the threat is worse than the potential of, contaminating anything or ruining any evidence, which is obviously true. So that would definitely happen. Also, Brad Pitt does go in, and one of the first things he says is, get forensics, don't touch anything. So that's good. I mean, he shouldn't be in that room anyway, but that's, I'm sure we'll get onto, what they've done wrong.
Yes. What happened in that scene that made you, like you said earlier, would recoil and think, no, that's not how it's done, or what you should be doing?
So one of the first things, which I don't think a lot of people appreciate, is the SWAT team and even, Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman, the first thing they should have done was check whether that person was alive.
Yeah.
Because they've just assumed that they are dead. And then we obviously find out they were wrong and they're still alive. And one of the things that crime scene investigators have to do at the very beginning is preserve life. So make sure that there is nobody in that crime scene that is still alive, because at the end of the day, that's more important to start with.
Yeah.
And then obviously Brad Pitt says don't touch anything, then proceeds to touch things.
Yeah.
Even with gloves on. So we know that a single layer of gloves, latex gloves, don't always protect things from both DNA and fingerprints. So we normally would recommend double gloving, so that
I did not know that.
Yeah, so that doesn't transfer through. Before all that, he should have had those photographed so that they could see what they were like in their original state. He's now moved them from that, so we'll never know what they actually looked like straight away. There could have been something specific or an important reason why they were left in that fashion for whatever reason. And then again, everything needed to be documented before he then started touching everything.
Yeah.
Also, they are only wearing gloves, which means, their hair, DNA from other parts of their body, DNA from their clothes as well, because we get DNA all over our clothes. That's going everywhere. So they're just contaminating the crime scene, even if they're just wearing gloves.
Naughty Brad Pitt.
Yeah, so there's quite a lot of
Yeah.
things that they did wrong.
Yeah. Okay. Realistically, how long a process does it take to find out how long something has been there in terms of either DNA or a body?
So with the body, you would have a pathologist who would look at the decomposition rate. Obviously the photographs would help in some way as just a sort of external factor to give you maybe a bit of a guideline, but a lot of the time they'll look at environment of the room. So is it warm, is it not warm, sort of that kind of thing will affect decomposition. So they'll do that, and then they'll come up with what they refer to as the post-mortem index, which is an indication of when that person died.
Yeah.
When it comes to DNA, we actually can't tell exactly when DNA has been deposited. So that again is another big issue that we have, where the suggestion is that somebody has handled or touched something years previously, and that's why their DNA is there. We can't tell. There's no sort of way of time stamping DNA. But there's quite a lot of research going into trying to figure that out, how to do it, because it's if we can crack that, that's a good way of highlighting whether DNA has been there from a certain point of time or not.
Yeah, well, that could revolutionise how crimes are solved, and even speed up the process as well.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. So what other things could be used in evidence? So what other forms of evidence are there on a crime scene apart from DNA?
So there's lots of things. Just sticking to sort of biological things, you've obviously got hairs. So that could be hairs from anyone who might have been in the room, so potentially a suspect. Obviously fingerprints, another really, really good one. And fingerprints can sometimes almost be better than DNA, because I think a lot of people don't appreciate that when we do DNA in forensics, we're not looking at the whole genome, which means technically there are people who will share that same DNA profile, because we're not looking at the whole genome, and the genome is the one that's the individualized profile. Whereas fingerprints, no one will have the same fingerprint as you. So that is completely individualized. Yes. There's a point where he's looking through jars of different body fluids. Then you've got things like any tool marks. So maybe if a weapon or something had been used, I think they've got some sort of drip or something in the person. Maybe like a needle or something that might have some form of evidence on it as well. The drugs, obviously, as well, and present, and anything that they've been given that person, they could also be potentially evidence as well. But things like marks and traces, so glass, so if there was anything that looks like it had been broken or something like that. Obviously, if you then found a suspect and they happen to have glass fragments on them that matched the glass from the crime scene, that's a good way of linking.
Have you worked with footprints? I know that sounds a really strange question. Have you worked with footprints? Have you come across, investigating footprints? And what do you do with that sort of information? Can you link it back to the size shoe, the type of shoe, or even where it was bought from?
So you would be able to potentially look at things like size of shoe, especially if some shoes obviously have the actual size on the bottom of them. So again, nice little clue there. But it can give an indication of what size shoes they are and what make they are. One of the things that they look for is the tread, because everyone walks differently. So their shoes will wear differently.
That's so interesting. Wow.
And so there will be small differences in somebody's shoes, even if you're wearing exactly the same shoes, on different people. And so you'll be able to match those shoes based on those small differences.
It's those intricacies of forensics that amaze me. Like just the way that you would walk on a shoe and how that would wear a certain part of the bottom of the shoe. Unbelievable. So this scene in Seven, how would you particularly approach this in a forensic capacity? What would be the first thing you would do? What would be your priority when you were to approach this?
So obviously the first thing I would do is, once the room is considered safe and secure, everyone out. Like Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman do not even need to be there right now. So that they would be out, and then you would have a CSI go in, and then the first thing they would do is photograph everything before they even touch anything, and then there would be a decision and an explanation as to health and safety. So they'll go in, do a risk assessment as well, because obviously the last thing you want is one of the crime scene investigators becoming, somebody who's injured in that crime scene and causing more of an issue. So one of the things they need to do is check that it's safe to go in terms of, is there beams falling down, is the floorboards dodgy or anything like that. Then once they've done that, they'll go in and they'll create what is known as a common approach path. So they'll look at where to go to avoid as much contamination or altering any of the evidence. Then they will start going in and investigating it.
When the forensics come in and do their investigations, take photos and everything, is it true that they shouldn't be talking to anyone before entrance because it could be misleading on their judgment and their decision going forward? That's something I heard. I don't know whether that's something that is true.
So this is a big potential issue with forensics, because on some level you need to have some basic understanding of what the case is, because there might be things that are more relevant to one case than another, or there might be some background information that makes something relevant that might not have been relevant if they didn't know that. So usually they'll have a basic understanding of what the inspector or the detective's first initial idea is of that case. And it's the same when it comes to the lab. We'll still have some information about what's happened in that case, because it does help direct us to how we're going to examine something. Because obviously if we have absolutely no information, we could throw everything at it, whereas that from a even from a financial point of view, it's not really worth it. So having some basic knowledge is useful, but yes, they'll usually try and maybe remove or avoid any sort of more biasing information. So like if there's some sort of known maybe the suspect is known or something, they might not say that, so that there's no sort of biasing information that they're male as female or whatever.
This is all fascinating, by the way. I'm absolutely in awe of you. It's just awesome. What is the biggest misconception people take away from scenes like that in Seven?
I guess one of the biggest misconceptions is probably going to be around not necessarily thinking that the crime scene as a whole is going to have evidence that will all kind of come together. It feels like in that scene, for example, they jump to conclusions very quickly, whereas in real life, actually, it could take months before they actually... And also they're going to want evidence for those conclusions as well.
And I think having this chat with you today, I fully appreciate and now respect the time, the effort and the complexity of forensics. I mean, I understood it before, but even more so now, and hats off to you. It's so incredible how much goes into it. What is the one thing you wish everyone understood about real forensic science?
So one of them is that not everyone does everything.
Yes.
So it's a whole team of forensic scientists that work on a case. So, you see these TV shows where they're going to interrogation rooms or, they're doing every single evidence type under the sun. That doesn't really happen. You do get some people who are cross-trained, so that means that they could do like DNA and fibers, for example, or something like that. But they are quite rare. Most of the time, it's one person has a very special sort of area of expertise. Like for me, it would be DNA and biological fluids.
Sure.
For somebody else, it might be glass, it might be, footprints, that kind of thing.
So we spoke earlier about scenes in TV shows and movies that may depict forensics as not very accurate. Are there any films or any scenes that come to mind that you can think of that portray forensics quite well?
So in terms of films, no.
Okay.
Not just not off the top of my head. They are obviously going to prioritize the drama. That's why we're all watching it. We're not watching it so that you can, understand how a forensic scientist works all day. And a lot of the time, that part of the film is not necessarily the highlight or the most important part.
Mm-hmm.
And then with TV shows, again, you've got the same issue with they're just trying to dramatize it. And realistically, I don't think anyone would go into forensics if, we actually watched somebody do their day job. Because there's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot more paperwork. Yeah, lots of paperwork, which is not fun to watch if you're, just sitting there and watching somebody do it. But things like sort of more true crime, they tend to be a lot more accurate, especially if they've, actually worked with a forensic scientist, or if they're doing real cases, things like that. A lot of the time that forensics is real and quite accurate. Sometimes though, those TV shows are actually highlighting where forensics was not done correctly, which again is also quite good because it highlights, that shouldn't have been done that way, it should have been done a different way. So normally I would say if you're going to want to watch something that is more realistic, go stick to sort of true crime rather than your dramatized films, unfortunately.
Okay.
Even if they are more interesting to watch.
Yeah, right. We're at the end of the episode now. It's been an absolute pleasure. Before we finish, I do want to know from you, what is your favourite horror or thriller movie of all time? And why?
Yeah, so it's a horror film. I don't think it has any crime scenes in it, and maybe that's why I like it. The Midsummer film, that's very, very good. It's very shocking, and it's a good. Yeah, it doesn't have any crime scenes in it, which maybe that is subconsciously why it's one of my favourites, because there's no reason for me to feel uncomfortable the whole time.
And what about TV shows? Have you got a TV show in mind?
So, interestingly, Bones was the reason I went into forensics.
Is it really?
Yeah, so Bones will always have a special place in my heart, even if I can't watch it anymore.
There we have it.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I've learned so much, and it's just been so fascinating to learn all about it.
No, thank you very much for having me.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to the Crime Scenes of Tinseltown. Hopefully you've been educated and inspired, and also maybe got some recommendations of TV shows and movies along the way. Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.